Welcome to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. My name is Teresa MacLennan, and I'm the Executive Director of the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. The goal of our program is to talk about the lives of women, issues of violence, women in leadership, gender equity, and really dive into the lives and experiences of women from all walks of life. We're really glad that you're with us today, and we're really excited about our guest, and we will welcome him in just one moment. Before we dive in to talking with our guest, we do want to acknowledge and thank our Indigenous family, our Indigenous partners, for allowing us to share in this space, allowing us to have these conversations. We thank you so much. So today, I am thrilled to welcome Keenan Aylwin, who is the Ward 2 City Councillor. Keenan, welcome to the show. We're so glad you're with us.
Happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
So before we dive in, we are going to be talking about community safety. And of course, you are the city councillor for the downtown area. So, you know, the work that we do here at our shelter, just to let our viewers know, if you're unaware, we do support women who have had an experience of violence and their children. And we try to always work with women to create safety plans. So how can they be safe when they're driving their car? How can they be safe using social media? How can they be safe when they are in areas of the community? And women come and go freely from the shelter, so very much may access the downtown area. And so putting into perspective our conversation today about community safety, we want to always just remember the higher incidence of violence that are experienced by women and the importance of creating safe communities. So we're going to dive into that a bit today with Keenan and just talk about movement that's happening in the city, wonderful plans and ideas that they have. And so we're really looking forward to diving into that. So where we want to start is, Keenan, what are the important things to consider when trying to create a safe city or even specifically a downtown area?
Great question. I think the first thing that we all have to consider when we're thinking about these issues of safety is where we're coming from. The experiences that we have may be very different from what other people experience. I'm a white cisgendered man, and I live in downtown Barrie, and my experience will be completely different from someone else, maybe a person of color or a woman or someone who's transgender will experience our downtown in a completely different way. And one of the most important things from the city's perspective to consider in terms of downtown safety is how we design our public spaces, how we make them safe, how we make people feel more safe through those designs and through the layout of our city, and then also how we plan and grow our city. We have a lot of growth happening within our downtown, and that'll bring more people and create a more vibrant, more walkable community with more people on the streets. And more people on the streets means safer streets because people can look out for each other and care for each other. So that's one of the main things that the city is looking at in terms of downtown safety. And I do want to note that Barrie is consistently ranked as one of the safest cities in all of Canada. And the downtown has a crime rate that's relatively even with the rest of the city. But then we also hear from people, and particularly women, that their experience doesn't jive with those statistics, and that women still experience violence, harassment, and don't feel safe in our downtown. And that tells me that this issue has to do with misogyny and systemic sexism, and those are big issues that we need to tackle and get right.
I really appreciate that you have brought those into our conversation, because that certainly is so much of the work that we do here with women to educate them. we support a lot of women who don't even realize what they've been experiencing is actually violence. And we have to try and educate them about what that looks like. And so, and I really appreciate what you're saying about, you know, community spaces are for everyone. And, you know, very challenging to create a space that meets the needs of everyone, but it is possible, it is doable when we have an acceptance and acknowledgement of the life experiences that everyone brings and just how they're living their lives, right? And I totally agree with you that safety comes by people and community. We rely on police services. We rely on, you know, officials, municipal officials to try and create safety for us. But we have such a responsibility ourselves as community members to be the ones to create safety. So I just really want to thank you for bringing those pieces into the conversation today, because it is so important for folks in the community to recognize that. So when you talk about what a safe community looks like, you've talked about it a little bit, but how do you feel that the city of Barrie is doing, and in particular, the downtown core?
I think we have a lot of work to do still. And I think I've been thinking about what this idea of public safety means and what it looks like. And I think this pandemic has really taught us a lot of lessons about safety and how we can make our communities and our world more safe. We know that people who are unhoused, people who are experiencing homelessness, have had particular difficulty during this pandemic. So everyone having a house, a roof over their head, that's safety. Housing is a human right. We know that people who are aging in our community in long-term care have faced just incredible tragedy, and the people who work in those facilities as well have faced a lot of hardship through this pandemic. So how can we look at that as public safety as well? How do we improve our social and community services so that everyone, and particularly vulnerable people, are cared for? And then I think also something that's been so critical during this pandemic is our public spaces and how we use our outdoor public spaces, and how essential that is for well-being, our mental health, and that's also safety. When people aren't doing well in terms of their mental well-being, that can cause a lot of issues in our community and can be at the root of crime and violence. And so that's something that we always need to be thinking about as we plan and grow our city. We do have a new community safety and well-being plan that the city is talking about right now. It is up for final approval at Barrie City Council soon. And I'm hopeful that that plan can be our sort of guiding light in this work to make our community the safest possible place it can be. And a lot of the actions in that plan take an equity lens and looking at how we can address those different experiences that people have based on their gender, their sexual orientation, their race, their socioeconomic status, and how we can really get to the root of some of those issues.
There's so much that we could dive into, Keenan, because I'm so appreciative of what you're saying. And, even just talking about housing, because, folks who are unhoused, who don't have, let's say, a permanent residency, how housing looks to them can be very different than how we define what housing looks like. And, so I think that it's important that we are meeting people where they're at and working with those folks to hear from those folks about what does your housing, as an example, need to look like for you in particular, a very individualized, as much as possible approach, right? Meeting all different needs in the community. And I think also in our conversation, talking about looking at things also from a trauma-informed lens in terms of, can we build communities that acknowledge the life experience that people bring, that is guiding the decisions that they're making in their lives, and that decision makers and agencies have a perspective and an understanding of that as opposed to a judgment to that, I think that that would really help us in creating, let's say, housing as an example, housing options that actually meet the needs of people where they are at, as opposed to us defining it. We ask them what works for them.
Absolutely. That's such a critical piece. And there's a saying that comes to mind, and it's nothing about us without us. Yeah. And I think that's really the heart of what you're talking about there. And respecting that lived experience that people have, that is that's expertise. And we should be listening to that expertise and including people in the process as we work to address some of these issues. And the reality of the way our government and society works is that the people right now in positions of power and historically have overwhelmingly been male, have overwhelmingly been white, and to a large extent have been wealthier and well-connected. And so it's those experiences, those different experiences that people have, those wide-ranging experiences that people have, aren't necessarily present in those decision-making roles. And I think that's why we see these issues persist. So including people, giving them an opportunity to engage in a meaningful way and ensuring that they have the power to make decisions about their own lives and about their communities' lives is really important.
I could not agree more with everything that you've just said. And it's so aligned with, how we try to do our work even here at the shelter. We come from a lens of anti-oppression, anti-racism, and of course, a feminist perspective. But I am extremely reminding myself and aware of the privilege that I hold as a white woman working at this agency and just as a white woman in the community. And so we have a very active survivors group, as an example, that we are continually asking to guide, direct, have input, and encourage us as an agency. Tell us what the services need to look like for you, as opposed to me defining that, because me defining that upholds that privilege and power that I have, and trying to balance that out is just so crucially important to the work that we do. And I think it is just a wonderful conversation and perspective that hopefully we get an opportunity to dive into more, but also to share with other folks, right? So, we're going to take a very quick break, and we just really encourage our viewers to stay with us as we dive in more and continue this great conversation with Keenan. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. And we're really glad that you're with us today. We're having a great discussion with Keenan Aylwin, who is the Ward 2 City Councillor. We're talking about community safety. We're talking about power and privilege, just so many pieces to our conversation today. So we're really glad that you're with us. So we are going to dive in a little bit more talking about community safety, and in particular the downtown core, and what initiatives the City of Barrie is looking at. So Keenan, can you maybe walk us through some of the thoughts and some of the movement that's happening with the city and community partners in addressing community safety in the downtown core?
Absolutely. So one of the most interesting initiatives that has come to light is it was started by a resident, a young woman named Jasmine Botter, who had an experience, an awful experience in our downtown. Her and her friends experienced harassment in our downtown, and they didn't feel safe and were worried about their city and their downtown and how they could do something about it. And Jasmine took it upon herself to create a petition and post posters around the downtown asking people to sign this petition in support of downtown safety, and in particular for women. And that petition just took off like crazy. And it was such an amazing thing to see. And I reached out to Jasmine, and I know a couple of other people on council reached out, and the Barrie Police reached out, and it started a wonderful initiative with the Barrie Women and Children's Shelter, yourself, Teresa, and Barrie Police, the downtown business improvement area, and Jasmine herself. And we discussed ways that we could improve the safety situation in the downtown. And the first step was to actually conduct a safety audit. So we took a walk around the downtown and identified areas in the neighborhood that could use some love, whether it was lighting or, if there was a place where cameras may need to be set up. And an officer with the Barrie Police, Kira Brooks, ended up doing a report on that safety audit. And from there, we were able to start an initiative to have some more lighting in 2 of the alleyways as a pilot project. And it should be installed any day now. And we're hoping that that can be expanded to other areas of the downtown where that's needed. And there was also an aspect of that program, which was called Bright Spot. And that was a program where a business could receive some informational training around, a trauma-informed approach to some of the issues, the safety issues that we have in our city. And that was offered through the Barrie Women and Children's Shelter and the Downtown Business Association. And if they participated in one of those sessions, then they received a sign, a Bright Spot sign, to put up in their window and let people know that they are a safe place to go. If someone's having an issue in the downtown, if they're in distress, or there's someone who's bothering them or threatening them, or they're just generally feeling unsafe, that they can head into that business and let the people who are working there know that they need help. And those businesses now know where some of the resources in the community are and where to direct people who need help in the moment. So it started off with an awful experience that Jasmine had in our downtown, and those experiences, those types of things are completely unacceptable, and we can't let those types of things happen. But it did end up, because of Jasmine's hard work, end up being a positive thing for the community as a whole. And I'm really excited about what we can continue to do with that initiative.
We were really honored to have Jasmine as one of our guests, and she was talking about her experience. And so, so important for every community member, and women in particular, when we're talking about violence, for women to gain their power and gain their voice and use it. And Jasmine absolutely did that and motivated the city, our agency, so many around her to take action. And we were able to provide that training for sure to the downtown businesses, and included Salvation Army and Shack's World as well, supporting youth in the community, and then the wonderful work that the Salvation Army does with their men's shelter and meals. So, it really was the voice of this young woman who pulled community partners together to make a really great initiative take off. And so we're extremely proud to be a part of that, and very thankful to be asked, and of course we support women. We know that 1 in 3 women will have an experience of sexual harassment or violence. Almost 70% of Canadians know a woman who has experienced violence. And those numbers are very real. They're certainly reflective of the numbers of women that we see here in our shelter with their children. And, for our viewers, we have a 27-bed shelter. We run closer to 35 and have to refer out over 500 women every year. So we always want to lift the veil and say that the violence, harassment of women is existing. It's alive and well here in our community of Barrie. But together, community partners, the city of Barrie, we can do some incredible things to try and change that. And I think that initiative is a really great one. So I want to switch gears here, because I wanted to talk a little bit about the safe consumption site. And long been discussed, long been recognized that we needed that here in the community, and lots of discussions with community folks, hopefully, you know, people with lived experience, and city council to figure out the best place for the safe consumption site, but also how you create safety for the folks who are going to use that service, and then also for just the general community. So are there any ideas or thoughts about those safety needs? Like, how is the city making decisions and working through all the needs to create that site? Mm-hmm. It's a big question, but yeah.
It is a very big question, but an important one. And first of all, I think it's important that we note the extent of problem with the toxic drug supply crisis here in Barrie, and the sheer number of people who are overdosing and who are dying in our community. And we have an overdose rate that's 8 times the provincial average here in Barrie. And we're losing people at an alarming rate. And those people are our family, our friends, our neighbors, and people who use drugs deserve to be safe and deserve to live a life of dignity. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's important for us to talk about the evidence and the peer-reviewed data around supervised consumption sites, and the reality of these sites where they've been operating across the country for years now. The reality is that not only do these sites save lives, but they can also reduce instances of public drug use. They can reduce instances of discarded needles in the neighborhood where they're located. They reduce bloodborne infections. And there is no data that suggests that there is an increase in crime associated with a supervised consumption site. But having said that, I think we do still need to take the concerns of the community very seriously and ensure that we're engaging the community, working with the community to address issues as they come up. And I know that the applicants for the supervised consumption site, the Canadian Mental Health Association of Simcoe County and the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit take that very seriously as well. And that's part of their application, is how do we mitigate any potential issues in the site and around the site, and how do we engage the neighborhood on a regular basis to ensure that we're working together to make the safest possible neighborhood for everyone. So I'm feeling very hopeful that we can both implement this essential life-saving service as soon as possible. It's long overdue, and also make sure that our community remains a safe place to be and gets even safer year after year.
Has a decision been made in terms of where that site is going to be?
So there is a proposed location at this time, and Barrie City Council will be considering it very soon. So the applicants are recommending 11 Innisfil Street, which is the rear of the building at 80 Bradford Street. And it's a large commercial building on Bradford Street. And there's an entrance at the back along Innisfil Street where they're proposing to put the site.
Yeah. So I guess then City Council in partnership or collaboration will make a decision if that's kind of where it finally lands. And I guess the benefit to that location, because I'm thinking about, the location needs to be accessible for folks to be able to easily get to it, right? And so near the buses, all those pieces or walking distance is so key, right? So, you know what, we really look forward to that. And we certainly support that. Our work at the shelter, we approach things from a harm reduction perspective. And certainly we don't promote or allow women to use in the shelter, but we try to encourage and talk about how they can use safely. And if women choose to use, and we have all of this very in-depth understanding about why the women that we support need and feel that that's how they want to conduct themselves right now, we want to work with them. And so how can we create safety around that? And so we are very, very supportive of the site when that gets launched, because we would love to add that in terms of our level of support that we can offer to the women who are here. And, I think 8 times the provincial average is a number that folks need to really, that needs to resonate with them, and know that that number is so high without any kind of a safe consumption site. And so that number is so incredibly high. We could only do better by having a site in terms of bringing that number down. So I just really thank you for your voice and the work that you're doing with regards to that. Because I do believe that you carry a lot on your shoulders, and you hear the voices of everyone in the community and have to balance what everybody wants, and everybody's coming from their own different perspective, of course, right? And that must be very challenging to balance, but there's great movement and great recognition, I believe, in having no judgment to the decisions that people are needing to make for their own lives at any given moment. But how can we support them, and how can we create safety around that as a community, because it benefits every single one of us. So we've got about 1 minute left, Keenan, and I want you to look into your magic ball and think about, if you had a vision for what the downtown would look like in terms of safety thriving, what would be your thoughts about what that would look like?
I think we are on the verge of some really excellent things in our downtown. We are seeing a lot of proposed new developments, which will bring more people to our downtown. And like I said earlier, that creates a more vibrant community, a vibrant business community, more eyes on the streets, so safer streets. And I think we're going to become a more diverse community as well, which is extremely important. And so I'm feeling very optimistic about our future in the downtown, and I think we're headed in the right direction. It's not always going to be easy, and it's going to be a bumpy road, but we all need to work together to make sure we can create the best downtown possible.
Well, Keenan, I want to thank you so much today for the conversation and just sharing the work that you're doing with the community. And we hope our viewers have enjoyed today, and of course, educate, inform, and challenge our thinking. Stay tuned. We hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.